What's going on, everyone? Scott here. Welcome back to the channel. The NBA Finals kick off tonight at 8:30 on ABC against the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics. Two different runs to the NBA Finals, so let's just go over some of the numbers and possible matchups that we could see in this series before we dive in, and of course, give our prediction for how we believe the series will going to go. But if you could, before we get started, make sure to hit that subscribe button down there and drop a like if you do like the video. First off, let's just jump into the series. Obviously, the Boston Celtics have the best record in the NBA throughout the regular season. The Mavericks finished as the 5th seed in the Western Conference and made their way through the playoffs. Now, the Boston Celtics had to go through the 8th seed Miami Heat, the 4th seed Cleveland Cavaliers, and the 6th seed Indiana Pacers. Obviously, the talk of the Eastern Conference playoffs for the Celtics run is Jimmy Butler was banged up. Cleveland was banged up. Tyrese was banged up in the Indiana series as well. But in Boston's defense, you got to play who's in front of you, and they've done that. They did what they've had to do. Won every series on the way to the finals. Another finals berth for them. Dallas Mavericks, a little bit different. They had to play in that 4-5 matchup against the Clippers. They won that series. Then they had to play the 1 seed Oklahoma City Thunder. They beat them to go to the Western Conference Finals and defeated the Minnesota Timberwolves 4-1. So that's how we arrive here at this NBA Finals between these two teams. First, I want to go over some offensive rating numbers for both of these teams. Kyrie, when he is off the court, the Dallas Mavericks are negative 14.9 in their offensive rating. Huge jump. Keeping it with Dallas, on the flip side, Derek Lively, plus 16.6 offensive rating for the Dallas Mavericks when he is on the court. And these are just playoff numbers as well. Then you flip that to the Boston Celtics, Jaylen Brown's offensive rating when he's off the court. The Boston Celtics offensive rating when Jaylen Brown is off the court, plus 20.1. But there's people out there that's saying they aren't a super team, yet your second best player can be off the floor and you still have plus 20.1 to your offensive rating. I don't know. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but there's that number. The biggest offensive rating on the court in terms of plus minus is Al Horford, plus 15.9 for Boston there. Points per game throughout the playoffs. Boston 111.4, Dallas 107.9. Now, matchup-wise, I think it is on PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. to exploit that Porzingis matchup. Obviously, Porzingis might not be 100%. He's going to play, but he has not played since April 29th in that first-round series against the Heat. PJ Washington having a really good playoffs, averaging 14, had some big moments throughout their run to the finals as well. Derrick Jones Jr. averaging 10 throughout this run, definitely the best in his playoff career, and is another piece that we assume will possibly draw that Porzingis matchup on that end. I think this series lies on those guys. If they can exploit that matchup and put him in a lot of action, that could bode well for the Dallas Mavericks in this series. If those guys can exploit that matchup as well and force Joe Mazzulla and the Celtics to adjust mid-series, then that could spell success, as I said, for the Dallas Mavericks. Defensively for Boston, if they let Luka and Kyrie play, pick-me one-on-one ball and stand at half court and dictate every matchup they see, similar to what we saw Steph Curry do in that 2022 finals, could smell trouble for Boston. Mazzulla will have to get creative with the off-ball switches and assure it is only Brown, Holiday, Derek White, and Jason Tatum involved in those actions with Luka and Kyrie. If you have Al Horford and, say Sam Hauser, another guy, they are really versatile on the defensive end. But if they're getting Al Horford and they're getting Porzingis and they're getting, say, Sam Hauser in those actions, that's trouble for Boston. And Luka and Kyrie will exploit all those matchups, possibly, draw some double teams once they get past them and hit their shooters for open threes. If Boston gets lazy on tags and switches, such as if Al Horford is being brought up into the pick and roll action and Horford is bringing up, then they need someone off ball, whether Derek White, Drew Holiday, probably not Jaylen Brown because Jaylen Brown's probably going to be on Kyrie, possibly, or Jaylen Brown might be on Luka. Whoever it is, one of the better off ball wing defenders needs to tag off Horford. Horford needs to switch off onto presumably one of the shooters, because it's probably going to be PJ Washington, Derrick Jones, Gafford, Lively, one of those guys coming up to set that screen for Luka or Kyrie at the top. So if they can tag off that and keep kind of hiding Horford, Porzingis, if they can hide them off that main action, I think that's Boston's best bet at defending that if they're playing pick-me ball. But if they get lazy off those and they leave, guys who have shot well these playoffs, PJ Washington, Derrick Jones Jr., Josh Green, and Tim Hardaway Jr., if they're left open and they can hit shots, that's obviously a plus for Dallas. Now on the offensive side for Boston, they will similarly try to put Luka in most of the action. Instead of doubling off of and helping Luka on defense for Dallas, I trust him. Sure, Tatum and Brown, if he gets switched onto them, they'll get their shots. But they're great players anyway. But if he can just hang in there, make life a little bit tough for them, exert a little bit of energy on the offensive side for them, I'd consider that a win. Because if I'm Jason Kidd, I'm okay if Tatum or Brown beats me. I'm not sleeping at night if Derek Wright, Drew Holiday, Al Horford, Porzingis, Peyton Pritchard, name your guy besides Tatum and Brown. If one of them beats me, I'm not sleeping at night. That's not saying any of those guys aren't good or great players and they don't excel perfectly in their roles for Boston. They have the #1 record in the league for a reason. But Tatum and Brown are going to get theirs either way. In my opinion, just don't let the others beat you. Don't let the other guys get the rhythm. We saw that kind of in that 2022 finals, Golden State and Boston, where Al Horford hit a couple shots in game 1 and he kind of got going. Thankfully, Steve Kerr and the Warriors were able to counteract that and adjust throughout the series to kind of flip that series, and Steph Curry's mastery game 4 was able to flip that series back. But man, all it takes is a couple shots, especially in game 1. Guys that have been there before, Al Horford, this will be his second finals. Other guys, Drew Holiday's an NBA champion. But this is similar to what we saw with Steph on defense for years. Offenses always tried to put him in the action, bring him up. We'd see it for years in the finals. LeBron bringing Steph up, or James Harden in the Western Conference. Hey, bringing Steph up, put him in the action, and make him work on the defensive end. Well, eventually, Steph became a pretty solid defender. Is he ever going to make an all-defensive team? No. He's not. But he was able to lead the league in steals for years and is able to hang in there now on defense and at least make life difficult, because he improved on it, because he knew that that was something that, teams were targeting for him, and it was looked at as a possible weakness in his game. So he worked on it and now is a solid defender. It's not, now once you get stuff on you, it's not just this is an easy bucket. No, you got to work for it. Able to knock the ball loose. So if Luka can hang in there with those guys, make life difficult, and then shut the water off of some of those other guys for Dallas on defense, then you're looking good. Now for Boston, if Dallas does try to double help off of Luka, and then they're able to pop, pass it around, guys start hitting threes, Al Horford starts hitting quarter threes, Derek White starts hitting threes, then that spells trouble for Dallas, and that's a plus for Boston. So that'll be a key there to watch throughout the series. I'd advise Boston not to try to double from the high pick and rolls with the 4 and 5 man, especially with guys like PJ Washington, Derek Lively, and Daniel Gafford. Incredibly athletic guys that can get downhill and punish you at the rim. We saw it a couple times in their matchups in the regular season when you look at the film. I'd recommend just playing chase off the screen, and then the defender on that 5 or that 4, who's ever setting that screen, I just drop with them. Don't let them get athletic at the rim. If Kyrie or Luka or whoever is handling the ball gets around, you drop, you're stopping them at the rim, chase them around so you don't have the easy pull-up shot. Kind of trap them into that little diagonal, especially if you're doing it on the corner or the side of the court. If you can kind of trap them and pigeonhole them into that corner, I think that's best bet for Boston on the defensive end there. Now, what could happen is PJ Tucker be on Tatum. We saw that in the last matchup, and they could try to hide Luka on Porzingis or a shooter like if Sam Hauser is in the game. We're assuming we'll probably see Kyrie on Holiday, I believe, and then on the flip side, Jaylen Brown on Kyrie defensively for Boston there. So that's through that. Obviously, this could change throughout the series, different matchups and whatever. 2 incredible head coaches in Jason Kidd and Joe Mazzulla. So I'm excited to see the chess match in the finals. It's always one of my favorite parts is someone who loves the X's and O's and, planning the chess match and mind game that goes into winning these finals series and in the playoffs in general. Now let's get into Boston will win this series if Tatum and Brown rise to the moment and if the others for Boston hit timely shots. And defensively, if you are able to make Kyrie and Luka inefficient and avoid their matchup choose me selections by Luka and Kyrie. If Kyrie and Luka are able to sit at the top, choose their matchups, as we kind of alluded to earlier, it's going to be a long series for Boston if they're able to do that. They're able to get their spots easily. Luka's able to get his lobs. Kyrie's able to get his creating to the basket, kicks out for threes. If they're able to do that all series and dictate that tempo and pace of play in the game, Boston is not winning this series if that's the case. But Boston is winning this series. They can force Luka and Kyrie into being inefficient, shooting, say, 13 for 28 from the field. If they can force those type of lines there, force a handful of turnovers from Luka and Kyrie, that's how Boston wins this series. And then also want to say how big this is if the others can hit timely shots, timely threes. As I mentioned earlier, game one of that 2022 finals against the Warriors, guys like Al Horford hitting those big shots were huge for Boston. If they can keep that up throughout the series, and it's not just Tatum and Brown, Boston wins this series. Dallas will win this series on the flip side if Luka and Kyrie are able to do the pick me, choose me in terms of their matchups on offense and get theirs efficiently. Plus, on the offensive side, PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. making plus plays. I can't stress enough how much I think PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. are going to decide a majority of this series, but also exploiting the athletic advantage on the offensive side for Dallas, specifically at that 5 position with Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford. Whether it's Al Horford or Porzingis, it's an incredible athletic advantage for them, especially Porzingis coming off that injury, not having played in a month and a half. If they're able to exploit that advantage of well, and it's not on Luka and Kyrie having to score 35, 30 every night from the beginning, I'm sure they'll get there's that. But if they're able to make their lives easy and more efficient, and you have Derek Lively getting 14 to 18 and getting 12 of those at the rim. Same thing for Gafford. I mean, getting 12 points or so at the rim. I mean, that just makes their life a lot easier and raises that win percentage for Dallas in turn. And briefly touching, Dallas will win this series on the defensive end if Dallas is able to shut the water off the other guys. As I said, specifically shooters like Al Horford, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Drew Holiday, Porzingis. Make Tatum and Brown beat you one-on-one. See if they rise to the moment. We didn't see it in the 22 finals. It was their first finals. I'm not blaming them. This is their first finals. See if they learn from that and their other playoff experience throughout their career. See if they learn that. See if they're rising to the moment and can beat you, just them. Hey, we're playing 2-on-2. Our 2 stars, Luka and Kyrie, against your 2 stars, Tatum and Brown. Let's see what it is. Let's go 2v2. I believe Dallas would be very happy if that's what it came down to. The others were completely taken out, and it was just Luka and Kyrie versus Tatum and Brown. I think that would be good and what Dallas wants for this series anyway. This is Boston, as we briefly mentioned. This is Boston's second time in the finals with this core after coming up short to the Warriors in 2022. I expect them to be a little bit more prepared, especially since they have added NBA champ Drew Holiday to the roster now. Dallas's main and really only finals experience comes from Kyrie Irving, who obviously appeared in 3 finals with the Cavaliers back in the day, including making some big-time plays in 2016 when they beat the Warriors. The first look you get at this series is the 2 superstars on each team, Luka and Kyrie versus Tatum and Brown, as we mentioned. If we're ranking these 4 just like regular season-wise, I put Luka at 1, Tatum 2, then Brown 3, and then Kyrie at 4. But if we're ranking them in big-time, high-leverage, clutch moments, that's a different story. If we're ranking them by that, I'm going with Luka, then Kyrie, then Brown, and Tatum. Luka, we've seen it throughout his career. We've seen it a handful of times throughout this playoff run and previous playoff runs that Luka's been in. Kyrie, we just mentioned the 2016 finals. Other times throughout his career and his playoff career, he has an extensive list of clutch playoff and career game moments. Jaylen Brown, we saw him hit a big shot in that Indiana Pacers series. Tatum, we've seen some throughout his career. We haven't seen a lot, though. So that's why I'm ranking that as I am. Not that the rankings or anything like that matters. Just a talking head talk going into the series. Now, Boston has all the on-paper advantages in this series. Offensive rating, defensive rating, net rating, overall record, everything. However, we've seen this story before in the finals. Just looking at the last 14 years dating back to 2010, the team without home court has won the series only 3 times. 2011, this Dallas team, this Dallas franchise, should I say, over Miami. And this is a very similar one that a lot of people are comparing. Obviously, with Dallas, you got a ringless European star, Dirk, Luka, against a young 26-year-old in his second finals appearance, LeBron, Jason Tatum. Will it be a similar result? We'll see. The other 2 teams, 2016, the Cavaliers over the Golden State Warriors, and then 2021, Milwaukee over Phoenix. Those are the teams who didn't have home court, who won the finals. So it's only happened 3 times since 2010, the last 14 years. The last time we've seen a 1 versus 5 matchup was actually the 2020 bubble, where the Lakers defeated the Miami Heat 4-2. Both matchups this season were won by Boston, 110-119 and 110-138. So Dallas scored 110 in both games. Now it's for some predictions for the series. Me personally, I am leaning on the Celtics stars not taking a big enough step to perform at this level in the finals. And that's not saying I think their stars are going to have good series. But I'm mainly leaning on Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic being more ready for the moment. Now, they can't do it by themselves. They're going to need the other guys that have stepped up throughout this playoff run, and I expect them to do the same thing. PJ Washington, Derek Jones Jr., Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively. Then you need other guys to hit shots. Josh Green, Tim Hardaway Jr., you need those guys to hit timely shots and make timely plays. But I'm leaning on Luka and Kyrie mainly in this series. For my prediction for this series, I debated. I went back and forth whether this was going 6 or 7. And truthfully, I think this is going to be a really good series. I think the stars make this a very even series. Boston obviously has the deeper roster, the better record, all this other stuff. But I think the Luka and Kyrie factor make this a more even series, and just the matchup problems that they can create when playing one-on-one and creating different offensive mismatches on the offensive end for Dallas is what I'm leaning on here. And frankly, I think Boston has taken a leap. As I said, especially I believe the Drew Holiday edition is why they've taken such a leap. I believe that this series is actually 2-2 after 4, and I think the home courts are protected. I think Boston wins the first 2, Dallas wins the next 2. I think Dallas steals Game 5 in Boston, but I think the leap that I'm talking about the Celtics making, I think they have what it takes to go on the road to Game 6 to force a Game 7 back in Boston. You're giving me Game 7. As a Warriors fan, I've seen this on the wrong end. Kyrie Irving in a Game 7, Luka Doncic in a high-leverage Game 7. Give me them to win a Game 7 in Boston. I got Dallas in 7 in the series. Luka, more than likely, Finals MVP if this is the case, unless Kyrie just has incredible averages or if he hits another shot like he did in 2016. And Luka isn't averaging whatever LeBron was averaging, triple-double back in that series. But so that's where I sit right now. I'm looking forward to the series. Obviously, I said I'm looking forward to the chess match as well. That is the NBA Finals. These are 2 incredible coaches, as I said, Jason Kidd, Joe Mazzulla. Looking forward to that as well. I think it's going to be a great series, as I said. So looking forward to talking about it throughout. But thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.